Hello, friends. I wanted to share another Substack. This is a Substack by Dr. Devon Price, and I believe it's free. So I'll put the link to this article, and my therapist shared it with me the other day, as we were talking about my perimenopause journey and how frustrating it had been to be with doctors who sort of were like arguing with my experience. And it the parallel here is that in this society with this medical model that has been sort of accepted over the past several hundred years, we are often left in the position to be like, the doctor is the authority. And this article is specific to whether we are like whether we can get a diagnosis of sorry diagnosis of autism or not. Um, and but it can be overlaid with understanding sort of like any kind of situation that you're in where you're like asking for a diagnosis from an authority so that you can access what you need to feel like supported and like your life is worth living and to create the meaning that feels valuable to you. So, if we're waiting for an authority, an external entity to give that to us, it's very disempowering. Especially if what we want to access is something that's going to make our life better, and we have to agree to being like pathologized or told that there's something wrong with us in order to get that. And so this article is basically advocating for the idea that like self-diagnosis or self alignment with a set of characteristics is super valid in that it's saying like I know how I feel and I know what I want to access in order to feel more fully who I am. And in that way, my wanting to access hormones um, to support my perimenopause journey is not because there is something, like wrong with me or I need to wait for some authority to agree with me. It's because I know that those hormones would help me to feel supported in being more of myself. And in the same way that transgender people are really, embracing and encouraging each other and doctors to let us have the hormones that feel meaningful to us. I think the same goes for perimenopause, people in perimenopause. And I just love the differentiation between the social model and the medical model of disability in the way that Devin describes it here, because when we're looking at the social model, whether it's perimenopause or autism, we're saying, okay, society is not supporting me being as fully me as I am right now. So, in the context of perimenopause, it's that society is asking me to function exactly the same as I did when I had a different balance of hormones. And if society was supporting me being in perimenopause by being like, yeah, once you reach perimenopause, you get to like not work as much. You get to have a subsidy to support you. You get to sleep during the day because your sleep is interrupted at night. And I would wager to say that if I was not having, the societal pressures to um, earn money and pay bills, then I wouldn't be as interested perhaps in getting the hormonal support because I would be able to let my body just like really rest and be in this fascinating process of transition from a reproductive body to a non-reproductive body. And in the same way for autistic folks, like we don't necessarily need accommodations and modifications if we can create a reality for ourselves that is supportive to who we are. So if an autistic person is not required to be in a school with fluorescent lights and people talking all the time and unpredictable sounds and to have to make a transition every 45 minutes, then they wouldn't need the accommodations and modifications, right? So the social model of disability says you are who you are, and if society limits that, then let's change society. And the medical model of disability says, if you can't do what society expects of you, then there's something wrong with you and we need to fix you. So, the perimenopause is a disability in that it doesn't allow you to do the same things that are expected of you when you're not in perimenopause. And so we seek to fix that through the medical model. But I love embracing this, you know, uh, self-diagnostic and like liberatory social model of disability, no matter what it is that you're considering getting a diagnosis around. So I love this sentence. The concept of embracing neurodiversity and the process of psychiatric diagnosis are fundamentally incompatible with one another. Where neurodiversity accepts, diagnosis pathologizes. Where neurodiversity argues for expanded social norms, diagnosis restricts behavior and labels it abnormal or sick. Neurodiversity allows autistics to join up with a wide swath of people: ADHers, people with psychosis, borderline personality disorder, narcissists, trauma survivors, people with seizure conditions, TBI, and more, and gives us the power to see how ableism harms us all. Psychiatric diagnosis says that we aren't all part of a larger community affected by discrimination. We are distinct, small groups of unwell people who need individual treatment under the supervision and control of the medical psychiatric complex, right? So he goes on to acknowledge that, like, yes, if you want to get the diagnosis because A, it gives you permission to access accommodations and modifications, B, it gives you actual, like, access to academic or work accommodations or legal protections, then, like, yes, um, play that game however it benefits you. But if you want to align yourself with other autistic people, if you want to access or give yourself permission to access accommodations and modifications, if you want to just learn more about what accommodations and modifications might benefit you, and you don't know which category of these neurodiversity experiences most resonates with you, then you can use a diagnosis as a way to fine tune, like, okay, this doctor, and I would encourage folks to try to find a neurodiversity affirming doctor, but to then be like, okay, should I like read all the books about, would I benefit from reading all the books about autism or ADHD? Can you help me narrow it down? Or maybe I'm ADHD, or maybe I'm falling more in the OCD category. Like that'll help me to narrow things down so that I can put my energies towards supporting myself to the, place that's the most resonant with my experience, not to like give a stamp of approval on you resonating with any sort of group or diagnosis. In the same way, I think that trans people in particular are really in a great position to talk about this experience of self-diagnosis or self, um, identification, is because trans people are existing in a world where it's like, what's the criteria? What are you telling me makes me trans? What are you telling me makes me not trans? Like it's so nebulous and so made up that and Devon's trans, that's why I mentioned this. But like for me to have embraced the self-identification as being trans and then to be like, what, I have to wait in for a doctor to tell me I'm in perimenopause or for a doctor to tell me that I'm autistic. Um, it's like I've already fought this fought through this illusion, right? That there is somebody who can say who I am other than myself. I am the only one. And I love how there's a really fun esoteric like paradox of the more that we can find our unique frequency in the harmony of all things, the more we are one with all things and less needing of identification. So, anyways, I'll put the link in the description. I love you very much.